committee meeting. Before we open the meeting, or please can any members or officers in attendance with an electronic device mute it to avoid feedback. I'm not sure how relevant that is without a microphone system. To guests attending remotely via Teams, please could you keep your camera and microphone off unless you wish to speak. Ideally not use the camera at all, as this can affect the quality of the IT connection. Please be advised that this meeting will be recorded and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy. In addition, the recording may be added to the website. If any councillors are accessing the meeting remotely, it is advised that you use your Swale or KCC lab to participate. Join using the link on the website or on a mobile and tablet device. It is not always possible to identify you, and you may not be recorded as in remote attendance. Please can members, now I'll skip the bit about speaking loudly and clearly into your microphones. Please can members speak loudly and clearly so that people watching online can hear. Welcome everyone to the Environment Committee meeting, and welcome any councillors and public joining us remotely this evening. In addition to the members of the committee, we have the following officers in attendance with us this evening. Head of Environment and Leisure, Martin Cassell. Environmental Services Manager, Alistair Andrews. Leisure and Technical Services Manager, Jay Jenkins. Seafront and Engineering Manager, Mike Knowles. Climate Change Officer, Janet Hill. Climate and Ecological Emergency Projects Officer, Sam Brookfield. And Democratic Services represented by Billy Attaway. Please be advised that no fire drill is planned this evening. If the alarm sounds, those in attendance should leave via the exits indicated and assemble outside. Can we confirm which way to go if there's a fire? Do we go through the chamber or that way? That way.
Unless there's a fire.
Yeah. That makes sense. Fire's underneath us. Do not use the lift. That's the important bit. If anyone in attendance requires extra assistance, please make yourselves known to us so that we can assist. Billy, do we have substitutes this evening?
We have apologies from Councillor Harry Pollard and Pete Neal, who is substituted by Councillor Peter Marshall.
And moving on to the minutes from the last meeting, do members approve the minutes at the meeting held on 15th of January 2025? Please. Happy with that? Right, thank you. And are there any declarations of interest relating to any items on the agenda? Right. Moving on into item 5, which is the contract extension for the minor maintenance and cleansing of public conveniences. And Mr. Andrew is going to introduce that for us.
Good evening, everyone. So members awarded a 1+1 year contract in January 2024 for minor maintenance and public conveniences in Swale. This contract agreed in order to create the time for a full review of public conveniences to take place and be discussed by members for service delivery post March 2026. That review is well underway by the project manager, and I understand a report will be brought to this committee later this year. This paper is simply to propose that we enter into the extension period for the contract and continue with the current service provision whilst that work continues. The current service provider has been in post since 2017, and they've delivered a reliable service in line with the specification, and we've received very few complaints with regards to the service that they provided. The costs of this extension have been considered and agreed by members in February this year, and this paper proposes that members activate the contract extension clause for the minor maintenance, opening, closing and cleansing of the public conveniences until March 26, whilst the project manager's report is finalised and members can debate the future of the services beyond that point.
Does anyone have any questions or comments?
So thank you very much for the report. It's really good, thank you. And I was really pleased to see that there was a comprehensive list of the, like an up-to-date list of the conveniences for all members to have a look at, and members of the public actually. My concern is I'm just looking for reassurance around, obviously there's a number of different levels to the public conveniences and what they're doing at the moment, and obviously it's everybody's questions around devolution. So I'm really seeking reassurance that, for example, whilst this is being extended, which I absolutely support, by the way, that we are obviously keeping everybody up to date with how these assets are being, for instance, in regards to devolution. I know that's coming in that piece of work, but to make sure that we are making sure, because obviously when these contracts is extended, if, for example, towns and parishes do decide through conversation with Swale that they decide to take on an asset, I think there's a lot of detail around where that contract sits for the new person or organisation looking after that asset. And I just want to be reassured that those kind of conversations are at the forefront of our minds, because obviously that may affect whether a town or parish looks at an asset as something they can take on or something that is out of their reach in terms of their own precept or budget going forward.
And I think it's a very valid point, and certainly feed that back to the project manager who's looking at the options for members to consider moving forwards.
Yeah, no, my colleagues just pretty much said what I was going to say, but basically with the report referring to the current service as being in line with very few concerns, along with appearing to offer good service to residents, for me it's a no-brainer, and I do believe we should agree to the contract extension.
Marchington? Is that, I'm expecting to have to report on this, but I actually received the message about you were looking at public conveniences, and I actually did a report on the one in Weaver Park. I'd like to submit it to you now. You have to don't need to read it, do I? I've got to. Item 1, the shower block is well used by visiting lots of people. So delivery drivers, the toilet is well used by home shop delivery drivers on their rounds in Queenborough. 3, service utilities, staff from electric, gas, telephone often seen putting up to use the toilet and then leave. Or the general public, often seen using the toilet facility either before or after their walks along the seafront at Queenborough. Queenborough event days, Xmas lights, often large crowds, toilets in constant use. And 6, the Saturday market in Queenborough, it's the only toilet available. And that was the end of the report for its usage, but I didn't know if it's static, so I'll leave it.
Otherwise,
yeah, just to on 2.8 about the full review. Obviously, I look forward to that coming to the committee. I think on the full plan it says it will be in July, where hopefully we can look at every sort of aspect regarding the provision of public toilets and how well used each is. As Councillor Worcester said, there's a full list in there, and I welcome there being a full discussion with the committee fully involved in what the sort of future provision might be. And hopefully we can sort of look at whether there are options for the town centre location ones in particular, how they are sort of maintained going forwards as well. So I look forward to that coming to the committee in July. So obviously I'm in support of extending this for the year, and I do welcome the opportunity for the committee to have a full discussion and be involved in what that future provision looks like. Thank you.
just following up on that, are we still on course for July for the report, or is that too early to say?
That's probably me. So I'm the project sponsor. I'm pleased to say a lot of the baseline information is there. So condition surveys, water usage. We've had counters in some of the key facilities looking at usage to complement previous usage data. Really and truthfully, now we're just waiting on responses from town and parish councils, which we've canvassed, and we're just about to launch a letter to go to local businesses in the locality of toilets, to see whether there would be any interest in what's called a community toilet scheme, where if your facility has toilets but aren't currently available for the public, would businesses be interested in providing that facility under certain conditions? And so again, we're just testing the market on those, but at the moment everything is on track to come to July. And the intention of that report is not to come with all the answers, it's to come with the data to discuss and debate, and potentially then to go out to a public consultation after the summer, to galvanise sort of resident opinions as well, because clearly it's a service that's well regarded.
Sorry, Councillor Jackson.
Forgive me.
I literally can't see you.
I know you can't see me in there. I see there's 4 that attended all the time and just 1 that's seasonally attended. I would like some reassurance that going forward, that if it goes out to the parishes, that the ones that are attended would be kept attended, because I really feel that the Faversham one should be attended in the central car park.
I'll probably take that one as well. Difficult to give an assurance. I think that's what you're. That is continue the existing model, and others may look to do that. I think clearly. Decision for members to the board of consideration for members.
So just really quick. For some of the coastal communities that rely on those services. So I think including data from the heavy period, so Faversham Hop Festival, we need to make sure that we're adjusting that data to make sure that those things are yes.
Is it?
What's listening?
But it is still reliant on both picking up wet.
Yeah.
I think because these people.
And I'm not saying.
Might see it also, take it on. If it, then
So, does anyone else have any further questions? In that case, could I have a proposer for the recommendation? Councillor Wise and take Councillor Worcester as second because she wanted to propose. Sorry. And can I see, actually, yeah, it's just show of hands in favour of the recommendation. That is possibly unanimous. Was that against? You have some of that? Or-
Yeah, was the recorded vote.
Thank you. It's
always one.
Because he didn't get the same. Okay, moving on, we've got the updates on the motion to change the shoreline management plan policy at East Church Cliffs. And this is going to be introduced by Mike.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as per the report, this is an update following the previous motion that was passed by members back in November 2020 to seek to change the current policy, the shoreline management plan, which covers the unprotected North Sheppey coastline. That is a current policy of no active intervention, and the motion was to pursue a change to that policy. The report provides the details of the work that's taken place to date. Members are asked to note the contents of the report following that previous motion to change the shoreline management plan for East Church and the undefended area of coastline, and to acknowledge the work that's been done to date and recommend that we now focus on engaging with and supporting those residents that will be at risk or affected from future coastal erosion. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions or comments? Worcester.
Sorry, I'm after reassurance around the support and welfare of those residents that will be affected by this in the short term and by this in the long term. And it won't be the only thing environment wise that will affect those residents. Some of those residents are really vulnerable actually, and it could be through age, it could be through what their property type is like, but mostly just because of location. And that's a really sad thing. So I want to be reassured that whatever we're doing, even though we're noting it, we know there's changes coming, that we're doing everything possible to communicate with residents and to take their welfare into as much consideration as possible with any changes that are forthcoming, including, for example, making sure that Swale has got an up-to-date plan for how those residents are supported through this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Yes, I think the main purpose behind the report was exactly that reason, to make sure that the officers are now focused on that engagement piece as opposed to the previous work, which was looking to challenge that policy. We've been working closely with some initial works through a consultant on a project which was progressed by the Environment Agency. The Environment Agency love an acronym, it's the NCERM project, but that means the National Coastal Erosion Risk Management Project, which is a nationwide piece of work to look at the future erosion rates around the country and to make that information readily available through the SMP Explorer website, Shoreline Management Plan Explorer website. So residents can now get the latest up-to-date information on the predicted erosion. As with most things, it's not an exact science, and these lines aren't a guaranteed or definitive answer, but they give a far greater understanding. So now we have that piece of information readily available online. We've been working with a consultant to put together some initial plans around engagement. And we're, as part of the work as well, we're looking to engage with colleagues at Norfolk Council who've gone through similar processes with their residents. They're slightly further down the line, because they've had funding through specific DEFRA and Environment Agency funded projects to look at the ways engagement can take place and the support that can be provided. So a lot of work to be done, but I think those first steps are encouraging. Again, it is a nationwide issue, and it's something that we can gather information and share between colleagues from different authorities, as well as looking at our own issues as well. So yes, very much looking at that engagement and the support that we can provide.
I could come back on that, Chair. One question. Brilliant, and I wouldn't expect Swale to do anything less. But I would like further reassurance that we are going to be engaging not just with residents, but also those towns and parishes and ward councillors that will be directly affected by this. Towns and parishes do have an opportunity to run emergency action plans themselves. And I think that I would like to see as much comms going to these towns and parishes and support that Swale could offer in that direction as well, because historically, when these things happen, they don't give you much warning, actually. And sometimes it's the communities that are there in the moment that need that support. And it could be a much easier line of communication to go through the town parish, who are usually staffed by councillors that live in the vicinity of the problem. So if we could make some sort of direction in that, or work in that direction, I'd appreciate it.
If I take that, because there's two parts to that. So just to reassure you, the engagement plan where officers, so it's been officers from the Environment Agency and ourselves that have done the initial sort of idea generation, the engagement plan. And we went through a process in this very room, actually, of putting lots of post-its on walls and talking about who the stakeholders are. And I can assure you, town and parish councils are absolutely fundamental to the engagement plan. So they are right up the top in terms of the stakeholder list. And actually, the cliff collapse in 2020, Mike and I both worked on that, and it was very abundantly clear that we weren't ready for it. Both with the connections with the parish council down at Eastchurch, we ended up using actually Minster facilities further along the line. What I can assure you as well is the emergency plan team have gone back in and have recreated those connections with the parish council at Eastchurch. So again, it's learning from the unfortunate events to be able to do that. We don't want to leave it to going back to a position of May 2020, and Mike touched on Norfolk there. We've spent, I know it's a long time since the first motion, but we've spent that long trying to get to the organisations and say we want to change this policy. We just come up against brick wall after brick wall. Actually, our recognition now, this report is about saying enough's enough. We need to turn this back to adaptation and helping those residents understand that it's going to happen, but what can we help with to make them prepared for that, or for it not to happen in the way that it's happened previously. And from my point of view, I really feel that this is the right direction now to move towards that education engagement, as opposed to keep trying to fight a battle that, unfortunately, as the report says, very unlikely, even if we were able to overturn the evidence, that doesn't guarantee funding, and this council does not have 20, 30, 40 million pounds to create a defence scheme in that area.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments? In that case, do I have a proposer for the recommendation?
Opposed.
And a seconder, Councillor Jackson. Please take the vote, or can we just say agree? Is there anyone opposed to, actually, is everyone in favour of the recommendation?
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, I think we needed that, because obviously we can now, that gives us the remit to.
Oh, yeah, no,
Continue
I'm not
with
saying
the
we don't need to
engagement
agree,
plan,
I'm
yeah.
saying we need to do a show of hands. Yeah. You know what I'm saying.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 7, the revised climate and ecological emergency plan report, and the revised climate and ecological emergency plan, which is going to be produced by Janet and Sam. And Sam, unbelievably, on his birthday, has come to work. So not only has he put together or helped put together this incredible document, he's come here to hear what people have got to say about it as well. Well done, Sam. And absolutely.
That's it.
Good evening, everyone. As Councillor Linden has alluded to, this is very much it's a cross-council effort. The actions that you've seen in there being put together by the owners and the various teams who put them. But I really want to acknowledge that Sam has done an absolutely sterling job on this. I know my name's on the report and I'll take any flack, but Sam has done a lot of coordinating, a lot of running around to chasing people. Anything in there. So thanks, Sam. I'll run through the report and then we'll build any questions, unless they're about bins, in which case. Okay, so I think you're all aware of the sort of background of this. So in 2019, the previous administration declared the climate emergency, and in 2020, we adopted an action plan to deliver targets in that emergency. As has become evident, we've achieved a lot, and we set very, very ambitious targets, and that gave us the momentum to get going and do a lot rather than having long-term targets. It's become evident to us, and the same thing is happening across most local authorities, and there's a lot in the press weekend after this report was written, that we're not going to achieve those really ambitious targets. So it was time to revisit the action plan, and we called in Carbon Trust, who were involved in the first action plan, and they worked with us. They've also left us with tools so that every year when we do the annual report, we're going to have a lot more in terms of stats and data, and we know how to gather it and use it, interrogate it. So we've got all that from the Carbon Trust. So having worked with Carbon Trust, we came up with new targets, and we've actually split out different scopes of the emissions. So for our own targets, and you'll see in the report, which is all in there in the introduction part of the report, we're going for 2035 scope 1, scope 2, and 2045 scope 3. And borough-wide, we're going for proposing a target date of 2045, which is still ahead of national targets, so it's still quite ambitious. But I know that some of the big businesses, particularly in the Kensington cluster, that they're going for 2045 for their own operations. So I think we're lining up with those. So we worked with the Carbon Trust, and Sam has worked with all the different team leaders to come up with this revised action plan. So we went to the old action plan, we looked at all the actions, and some we've kept, some we've completed, and we've regrouped them because we need to look more externally as well as internally this time around. So we've got 7 themes, which are our own operations, air quality and sustainable transport, low carbon businesses and industry, low carbon buildings and energy efficiency, waste and resource consumption, resilient communities and engagement, and biodiversity, net gain and ecology. So we've got those themes, and then we've got actions to each theme, which are all set out in the action plan. So yeah, as I said, these new themes need us to be more outward looking, and we need to engage more with our communities and business, and that's why we've got 2 of those new action areas. And this is going to be a living document. It's cross-referenced to other council documents. Obviously, as the local plan comes online, we will incorporate targets in that as well. So it's going to be a living document, and we'll update it to reflect other policies as they're adopted. And you've all got a copy of the action plan. So I would like to propose that we adopt it. I don't really think the alternative options, that they're not really alternative options. It's just not, they're not recommended. We could stay with the old one, but it's out of date. And we could decide not to have an action plan, but then we can revoke the emergency declaration as well. So this has been to been worked on right across the council. The steering group, which includes quite a few of you here, worked on it. Been to IAM and now the leaders briefing, and it's been to SMT. So it's had a lot of
Anyone have any questions so far? Councillor Wise.
Thank you very much for the report. It's great to see all the different strands through the council coming together, and the mention of the Kemsley cluster is welcome because it's really interesting to see the work they're doing, and they do go to efforts to keep myself and Councillor Carnell involved as Kemsley Ward councillors as well. So it is interesting tracking that sort of work that they're doing and the sort of wider research interest that there is around that and how that could be used by other emitters of a similar sort of industry background. On the waste and resource consumption, it's something that I have raised at previous meetings, which is around what I consider to be a really major piece of work that we have to do to really drive up our recycling rates in the borough. It's good to see what our ambitions are in this document and that it features prominently. But the behaviour change that we really have to be driving forward in partnership with our residents. This is something that all of us can help to shape. We all have our bins. We all can look at what we do above and beyond, and members here have discussed it at previous meetings, and where I've said that I'd really like us to be promoting additional recycling opportunities to residents beyond the curbside collections as well, so that we really do everything we can to sort of guide people the best they can in the most convenient way they can to reduce what goes to landfill ultimately, or however that residual waste is processed, and really do the very best we can to recycle and wherever possible reuse as much as possible. So it's good to see it featured in there prominently, but I'd really like the council to really put effort as we go forward in delivering on our action plan to do everything we can to get that recycling rate up and to get that residual waste figure down as low as possible. Yeah.
Just to reiterate what I said before, I absolutely agree. That's why it's in there. The next year is quite an important year because come April next year, every domestic property needs to be offered food waste collection. So we've got some chunky work to do throughout the year for those that are either on sack collections or communal collections that aren't currently offering food waste recycling. We need a lot to happen to coincide with that. Obviously, the service has nearly settled to allow us to start some of that education and campaigns that we've really not been pushing against an open door on with the level of disruption. So this year is definitely the year to do that. Our education and campaigns officer is champing at the bit to get back to doing that. And as I say, the first focuses will be on bringing food waste collections to each of the properties that currently don't. The government changes are happening as well. So again, what we collect at curbside will vary dramatically in future years if people start putting plastic bottles into vending machines and getting their 20 pence back and things like that from what's called a deposit return scheme, then what we collect is very different. So again, that's gonna, in my view, whilst it means we might not collect as much material, it gives us probably more flexibility to look at services. So yeah, lots of change, but absolutely agree, and that's why it's in there. Swale really suffers from contamination, and we really have to tackle that. And we need councillors to take bold policy decisions to back us up, because carrot is only good to a certain level. Stick, unfortunately, has to be used on occasions where people are reluctant to change, and that's a hard sell when it's something that happens to every household, and as we know from the last year, how important collections are to all of us. So it's going to be, it's going to take some tough joint work from us all.
And I mean, on the there you went saying joint work. I don't know how many people are aware, but KCC have also put some money into promoting recycling to help increase recycling rates across the county, in part driven by a financial incentive based around the fact that the amount that they currently send to be incinerated, if they continue sending that amount in 2 or 3 years' time, there will be a significant levy against that. So Councillor Worcester is next.
So I thought it was a brilliant document, and I know that the Labour group fed into that, and I'm very proud of that work actually. And I would like to highlight a bit of the document that I think was missing from the last one in lots of respects, which was the amount that Swale is going to need to reach out for partnership to achieve our goals. I like the fact that the goals have been reduced to manageable goals and realistic goals. I think that's imperative. And when we're looking at empowering, connecting communities, our business community is a community, and we need their help and to reduce emissions and to create sustainable communities. It means creating sustainable working areas and jobs and things that people need that buy-in. So I'm hoping that this document, we can have a committee push that actually we will be working with this document on a chair-to-chair level, so that, for instance, when we're looking at economy making a bold contract decision, this document should be in that discussion. When we're looking at planning reform and the way that our local plan is put together, this document should be part of that conversation, so that it doesn't sit as a standalone document. If we've declared a climate emergency, then this document should be running through lots of discussions in lots of other committees, in my opinion. And I think this is a much more usable document to have that conversation and to make those things work on a really realistic level, because a lot of progress can be made without Swale throwing a lot of budget. It could be a policy change. It could be something that we push through our local plan and have a more fundamental step change. For example, it doesn't just have to be business we work with. It could be education. It could be NHS. It could be our prison cluster that's in Swale as well. It could be our railways, because at the moment we are having that conversation on a very low level. I would think we should be stepping that up, and we should be saying to our railway station, especially in Sitball, because they own that car park, I did my research and found that out, that they should be providing support for their employees in terms of EV chargers, in terms of how to get to work without, using a car and things like that. Hopefully they use the train, but don't know, do you? Brilliant document. Thank you very much for all the hard work, and I hope lots of people take it through to their other committees' work, because you don't just sit on this committee independently. I know I'll be taking it through to my other committee work as well. Thank you.
Yes, great report. I think one of the most important aspects of this report moving forward will be how it will be used in dialogue with partners such as KCC, especially as I feel, to me, they don't always tend to take this council's views on board. Will we be looking to stress the importance of this report and push for closer cooperation where possible?
We have, at officer level, we have a very strong Kent-wide climate change network, and working with our counterparts and all the other local authorities in Kent and at KCC. KCC have actually just beefed up their team. And then above that is a group which Larissa chairs and Martin sits on, PMEG, which is Kent and Medway Environment groups, yeah. So, you know, officer level, there's a lot of cooperation going on. And we, you know, keep working on that relationship.
And there's another layer coming in on Tom, so it's been quite silent from a member councillor point of view recently, because there's not been the forum, so post KCC elections, going to re-implement the members board, so the members board will ask for a representative from each council, and all of those leads for climate will go to this board, member board meeting. And it's going to oversee all of the waste and recycling stuff and all of the climate emergency stuff as well. So generally, they tend to be the same person appointed as the lead for both of those. So the idea was to merge the two together and get a really strong member board on all things environment. So.
Councillor Jackson.
Yes, it's on 9.4, the low carbon buildings and energy efficiency. Stay out when I was litter picking, I've been asked, and I've often thought it, and I think it's been raised before at planning meetings when I've been on the planning committee. Why do we not insist on new builds having solar panels? I mean, West Favershams just had this done and they're saving an awful lot of money with it.
Fortunately, it's not in building regs, so we can lobby to get it into building regs. There are other ways of achieving building regs without, if you're putting in an air source heat pump, you can achieve the levels of savings without doing the same. It's something hopefully in the local plan that's been worked on. Sam and I have been working closely with the planning policy people on the buildings aspect of the local plan, and hopefully there's going to be a lot more stuff like that going in there, but it's something, you know, we could be lobbying central government.
Anyone else have any questions or comments? In that case, I would like to propose that we adopt the revised action plan. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Worcester. Thank you. Is everyone happy that we agree that? Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jennifer. And happy birthday, once.
Making talk on his birthday.
I know. Do you want to say anything?
Sam, I'll say it for you then. You've done an excellent piece of work today on the community stuff. So really, really good.
Right, and then the only item left on the agenda is the forward decisions plan. Is obviously at the back of your agenda pack or at the bottom of your PDF. Does anyone have any questions about the forward decisions or forward work plan? Councillor Speed.
So we've got the review of the APMAs, 2 of our APMAs in July. I still don't understand why a briefing has been organised for all councillors on this subject, because this is a decision for this committee, isn't it? So why are all councillors being briefed on the AQMAs?
You able to answer that one?
It's not my service area, but my understanding is that obviously there are other AQMAs around the borough as well, and where they're giving advice over eradication, they may well be useful. The briefing, it may well be useful in future for other areas. So it's not necessarily asking for all councillors to take a view on these particular two. More about the process and understanding that in terms of that. Clearly this committee, we have to have a committee that makes the decisions. So this is the committee that air quality comes under. So therefore, that's why it would come to here rather than being a ward-based decision.
Yeah, so, but I mean, if other areas were being examined, that would still be a decision for this committee. I mean, I'm struggling to think of other topics that are the decisions of service committees that have been put out for a briefing to the entire council. I just wonder why this has been picked out for that tree.
It's an interesting question. I mean, I can't think of anything other than
I can't say.
audit or licensing where you have committee specific briefings. I think there are a few things that do go to all member briefings if they're like the shoreline management plan. That was one that was an all member briefing, and trees and a lot of things.
My memory serves me right, there was a misunderstanding at one of the committees last year when the removed some of the meters or the air quality. And I think it arose from that, remembering on Niam's discussion. I'm not sure, it's just my foggy memory of it.
I agree, and I requested the members' briefing because I think there is a lot of misunderstandings around data and the subject in general, and air pollution in general. I think is something that, and I know Councillor Speed as well, takes quite seriously, and so we should. And it does affect all boroughs or all wards in the borough. And it's not just about, for example, right now, it's about future work as well. So I'm happy to stand by it. I think that I'd like to see more member briefings rather than it just being about informing the members that are directly on the service committee, because it affects members in other wards as well that can feed into their members that sit on the environment committee and have a more reflective approach.
Anyone else have any other comments or questions?
Given that some things have gone through now, obviously, now that we've agreed to work on shoreline management engagement plan, that's not in there, I don't think, but we'll look to come back fairly quickly with an initial view on that engagement plan. So I'll add in. Probably know exactly when it's going to come to, but there'll be another item on there.
Thank you. And I will close the meeting at 10:47. Thank you very much.